Okay, so up until this point, we've looked at the shorter form synopses. Well, we'll say the shorter form ways of presenting the content of the film. You have the log line, which is one sentence. You have the blurbs, which can be multiple sentences. Then you have the one sheet, which is a combination of the log line and the blurb. Then you have the one-page synopsis, and then outlines, and then the beat sheet covers those beats, right? So when you talk about a beat sheet, it's hitting those different beats, but it doesn't exactly look at all of the scenes necessarily. So that's where the treatment comes in. The treatment is like taking the synopsis and the beat sheet and putting them together. And then you have a detailed account of all of the scenes. And usually a treatment is anywhere, I mean, it can be one page if there aren't that many scenes, but a treatment can also be, 7 pages. So really it depends on the content of the film. I do give a little bit of parameters for you guys with how long the treatment should be, but again, if you need more room because your story is epic, then take it. But the reason I show you and spent so much time on talking about the different beats for the beat sheet is that you're going to go and you're going to brainstorm for this assignment, which I'm going to look at with you in a second. You're going to brainstorm this assignment, and it's going to be a feature-length film, and you'll say, I want this to happen, and how do I make it happen? You can look back at that 3-act structure, which helps give you a shape, but then how do you break it down? And that's where I think the beats will help you place your story within a traditional narrative structure. And I am not in any way saying that you guys have to tell a traditional narrative by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not grading the treatment based on whether you hit the different beats. But if you're writing a romantic comedy that has, that resolution at the end where the two come together, the beat sheet may be fitting that form, so you might as well use it. So there's nothing wrong with that. So your treatment synopsis and assignment, let's look at that. You've just turned in your visual storytelling assignment. You've just had your workshop. I'm going to be spending the next week reading these scripts and giving you feedback. And while I'm doing that, you're going to be brainstorming your first feature film. And so let's take a look. And I have this, let me move this up, on the modules for this week. So I'm recording the 3rd video right now. Here are the first 2 videos. We're going to take a look at this sample treatment in a moment. Here are the Ingrid Goes West readings. And here's the treatment synopsis assignment. So your rough draft is going to be due to your discussion group on 10/25. Sorry, it shouldn't be 10. I don't know why I have 10/25. That should say 9/25. I'm fixing that right now. Obviously, teaching 6 classes with 156 students is burning me out a little bit. So, we're all human, so I'll make that change here. That September 25th, which is next Friday, you'll have a rough draft of your treatment or synopsis, and then we're going to workshop it the following Tuesday, and then you get a week to revise before you submit to me. So you will not be submitting your rough draft to me, just to your discussion group. So let's take a look at what this assignment actually is. And so I'll open the assignment, and it's 150 points, and probably the dates are incorrect on the bottom of this. That's fine. I'll fix them. But it's a mock treatment, and it's an exercise in story development more than anything else. I'm not so much looking at the form of the treatment as, can you tell me a story that would take place in a feature film setting, 90 minutes to 120 minutes, and tell it from beginning to end? And so we're going to look at a sample here in a second. But we'll use treatment and synopsis. That's why I call it a treatment synopsis. A treatment is like a beat sheet in prose form and gives a play-by-play synopsis of the events and action in the film plot. The term treatment has started to go out of fashion as it relates to fiction synopses and is now often referred to as a synopsis, depending on what the agent, producer, or production company is asking for. That said, for this class, we'll use both terms to refer to the documented layout of the complete feature narrative. Writing the mock treatment will help students think beyond individual scenes and consider greater formal apparatus when they want to construct as a vehicle for their narrative. So I have this single-spaced 1 to 2 pages long, written in paragraph form, not bullet points, and using present tense. That's one of the first grading criteria. Should be clear and contain a plot progression that ends on some level of resolution that exemplifies a change in a character as a result of action. And I'll actually say a change in character or a change in something. The script should be a standalone piece that does not require anything else for us to interpret it, meaning if it's a part of a greater series, and again, unless you're like, I'm writing this trilogy and I need to make this treatment for the, second film, okay, If you're that passionate about it, great. But really the story should stand alone. And then 25 points for spelling and other proofreading errors, including continuity. Really, I'm looking at, can you tell me a story from beginning to end in 1 to 2 pages that would be a feature film, and just walk me through the scenes as they happen. You want to use present tense. We're going to look at an example in a second. So each of the grading criteria is worth a specific number of points. And of course, I have the dates wrong on these, so ignore this from last fall. But ultimately, I will assess holistically. I don't want you guys to worry too much about the grades these times. I want you to have fun. I want you to be like, whoa, I get to come up with a feature film idea. This is crazy. This is awesome. And I get to practice doing it in a summary format. And what does that look like? Well, I give you guys, and I'll pull it up over here. I did a link to Halloween H2O. We're almost Halloween, so it's seasonal, but and I know you're going to say, what? That's 7 pages? Hear me out. The text in this is super big, and it really takes up way more space than it needs to. So I'm going to say, like with the 2 pages, like this text just looks really big to me. It did when I was reading it, and it really did read super fast, like a 2-page Word document. You can do this in your screenwriting software, but it is going to space things out. So here will be my compromise for you. If you're writing it in your script software because you want to, and it's spaced out like this, and it reads quickly, fine. But if you're going to write it in a Word document or some other kind of word processing document and it's single spaced, this would clearly break down to about 2.5 pages in a single spaced Word document. So ultimately you're aiming, for about 1,200 to 1,600 words. So maybe a little bit more than 2. I gave 1 to 2 pages so that it didn't stress people out because some people are going to freak out. But let's take a general look at this through Act 1, and then you guys can read this on your own. But there is also, that's right, the other reason why there's an extra sliver of a page is that there's a blurb right here. Actually, yeah, it's a blurb. So Laurie Strode, thought dead, is discovered to be very much alive and living a quiet and content life as mother and teacher at a small New England all-girls prep school. But with the eve of All Saints quickly approaching, Laurie Strode's world will once again be ripped apart by the arrival of an old member of the family. You guys don't have to include that, but if you want to include it in your treatment, it would be fun. So, act like this in a Word document would be maybe 2 lines. But because it's in Courier in this format, it's not. So Act 1, Chicago suburbs, night. You don't have to use the act setting, but if you want to use it, great. Chicago suburbs, night. We open on a woman coming home to find her front door ajar. Scared, she goes next door to enlist the help of a neighbor, a teenage boy. They call the cops. The woman, afraid someone has broken into her home, is scared to go inside. While waiting for the cops, we learn the woman is Rachel Loomis, daughter of Dr. Loomis. The teenager Timmy is bored. He's missing Seinfeld. The cops are taking too long. Timmy decides to check the house out himself. Armed with a baseball bat, Timmy goes inside the house while a fearful Rachel stands outside. Inside the house, Timmy discovers nothing amiss. The house is empty. He returns outside and tells Rachel. He says goodnight, leaving her alone. She goes inside and locks and bolts the front door. She checks the house out. It does not appear to be burglarized. Ring! Rachel jumps when the phone rings. She answers. It is the police. They're still on their way. Rachel continues checking the place over. Everything seems fine, except in her office. Certain files have been opened. We glance them. The name Carrie Tate is glimpsed. Rachel's face goes pale. She immediately goes for the phone. Clank, a noise is heard. She's not alone in the house. She moves through the house to discover the front door wide open. Shit, she bolts. Rachel runs out the door and back to the neighbor's house. She pounds on the neighbor's door. Timmy! The door opens to reveal Michael Myers. Dun dun dun. And so we're reading through all of this. I think there's a little more detail than needed in this first page, which is probably why this treatment is 7 pages and not 2 to 3 pages also. Although again, the size of the text matters there too. But in this treatment, and I would like for you guys to do this too, capitalizing the characters, and you don't have to capitalize the sounds if you use them. That's actually not very typical of a treatment, but it definitely reads like it definitely reads like the scenes without the dialogue, correct? So you can include things like cut to if you want to, but this basically goes through the um, all of the scenes in Act 1, then all the scenes in Act 2. Notice it is all in present tense, okay? And it gives visuals so we can see. So the setting, school is enclosed behind tall gates, an electric gate with guardhouse sits at the entrance, and the guardhouse sits an older female guard. So all of this stuff is going to help convey the plot and what's actually happening. You're not going to see anything in this treatment that's talking about the thematic ideas or really the style of the camera work. It may mention a couple of visuals. In this, it's a horror, so it's supposed to read like it's scary too. So do think about the genre of the film that you're writing in, and the prose can read in that way, right? But you really are focused on the action. So I'd like for you guys to take the time to read through this treatment before next class. A lot of reading. But again, the more you read, the more aware of the form you're going to be. And so I don't think this is too overwhelming. I mean, this is a little long, right? And then there's this fade to black. You don't need to do that in a treatment. But again, there's varying styles. So I don't want to oppress you too much in your writing style. But again, I think like as long as you're getting this story out in 2 pages and you're focusing on the action and you complete a story, again, if it goes over 3 pages, then that's fine. That's my goal for you. I want you to come up with an entire story and detail it out. Don't stress out about it being perfect, but do stress out about it being complete, because I find that a lot of really brilliant writers that I know, and some of them are students, some of them are former students, some of them are my, former professors. The biggest thing is starting something and not finishing it. So you're not going to be required to write this out in a script format. You wouldn't have to worry about that. You can with our future assignments if you want to, but I want you to have fun with it. And after going through the links, and I'm gonna I already linked this one, but I'll link another treatment for you guys too for you to see. But if you have any questions about the treatment before next week, let me know. Once we meet on Tuesday, the 22nd, you'll still have that day and 3 other days to complete a treatment. So what should you do between now and then? You should focus on story. Don't focus on how many pages and filling out the treatment, but focus on story and coming up with a story and writing out scenes. And know that that treatment that you're going to be turning in on the 25th is just a rough draft. So if there's any story issues with it, it's going to come up with your workshop group. And I'm going to be putting your workshop groups up here on the module here in a bit, before next class actually, so it's not too overwhelming. So I'm going to do that after our class tonight if you're watching this Tuesday night, last night if you're watching this Wednesday. This is the asynchronous thing. I don't know when you're watching these videos, but I hope you're not falling asleep. I know they're not the most exciting things. But I think they're exciting. I shouldn't even say it. I think they're extremely exciting. I'm excited for you guys to be creating stories, and I'm excited that I get to read them. I feel really humbled and lucky that I get to read them. So what to do? I have 1 minute left here, and then I'm going to set y'all free. The things that you need to do. Post-workshop, you have a week to read the 2 Ingrid Goes West scripts, because that's what we're going to be doing next, is talking about Ingrid Goes West. And here's a little preview. We're going to be discussing Ingrid Goes West. There's Matt. He was in my class. He's a sweetheart. It's a brilliant script. It does fit the traditional narrative. As you're watching it, maybe you have your beat sheet PowerPoint up and look and see what those beats are. We're going to also read both scripts, so we're going to talk about the revisions next class, and then any questions that you have left over about writing the treatment. And that's it, you guys. So thank you for hanging in there for these 45 minutes of video lectures that I did for you. It's just, I think, easier than trying to do the workshop and then logging in at 9 o'clock at night and doing the 45 minutes. So if you have any questions, please shoot me an email. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you guys again on Tuesday, the 22nd. And hopefully, next time I see you, I'll have most of your scripts done. My goal is to get most of them done. So I will see you next week.